Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Commodity TV here out of our studio in Switzerland. And with me here is, I'm really happy, Dr. Keith Barrenty, Chairman and CEO of Aurania Resources. You remember the exploration company out of working in Ecuador, coming out of Canada. And yeah, we want to do, of course, an update. Keith, good morning. Great to have you here.
Great to be back. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. And I'm really happy that you had the time to stop by here in Herisau. And just also for disclosure reasons, I'm a shareholder of the company, of course. And I'm really happy that I am.
We're happy too.
And talking about shareholding, honestly, I was quite impressed. You did some months ago. There was, let's say, some money payments were due for your claims, and you said no. I'm gonna take that. I pay that, but you did it on a 50% premium. You put money into the company.
I did. Yeah, I put some more money in, $2 million US at the end of March to pay the annual patents on the project. And I did it through a convertible debenture, so it's exercisable at $3. And right now the share price is around $2.15, $2.20. So, at the time, the share price was at $2. So as you said, it was at quite a premium. That's because I'm a big believer in this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I said. It shows big confidence.
Yeah.
And it honestly made me to invest also, because that's quite unusual that a CEO is doing that. So, well done. Fantastically done. You're running currently a private placement also. I think the first 2 million units are gone. You raised it to 2.5 million because of the interest, I presume. Yeah. So the company has then now enough money in the bank to really work with.
Yes.
And you had also discoveries like Yoni. Then you have, of course, La Torre and you have Crunchy Hill.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe you can comment a bit what happened in the last 2-3 months since we spoke. And of course, afterwards, I want to go a bit more to the future, like to the end of the year, if we can expect some good news.
There's always news coming through. Almost every week, the geologists are finding new stuff and generating new results from the field. So that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. There are people working all day, every day down in the field. So recently, we found, I think the number is now up to 8 targets on the La Torre area. And these are epithermal type targets. Epithermal meaning gold, the type of gold deposits that are generated by geothermal hot water close to the surface. Epi is like epidermis, like the skin, close to the surface. And so it's been very exciting. We've been finding these things which are called silica terraces. They're a typical kind of thing that you would find in a hot spring environment. And certainly just above where the veins were at Fruta del Norte, there was an absolutely identical sort of thing. That's 100 kilometers to the south of where we are working right now, but in the same package of rocks, the same age of rocks. Now, the thing that's astounding to me is that the geothermal area that we're looking at, it's extinct now, of course. So there's no hot water coming out of the ground. There's no steam or anything like that. I was actually just a couple of weeks ago in Yellowstone National Park in the U.S., and I went there specifically because I wanted to see modern analogs to what we're looking at. The stuff we're looking at is 160 million years old and long, long extinct, the age of the dinosaurs. But these obviously, there's hot springs all over the world. There's lots of them in New Zealand. They're in Iceland. They're in Montana and Wyoming in the States. So I went there to specifically have a look at it, and it was astounding. I saw things every day that I recognized from the field down in Ecuador. And when you think about it, it's an amazing thing. Those rocks in Ecuador are 150 million, 160 million years old. So they were buried, and then they were exhumed because the mountain process raised the rocks up, and then they were eroded down. So that material is now at the surface. And so it's been through quite a complex series of events. It's been buried and then eroded again. And so, but you have what's present at the surface, what's called the paleo surface. So the original land surface is now exposed at the present surface. And you think, well, how is that possible? Why hasn't it all eroded away? But occasionally around the world we find things like dinosaur footprints. That's also a paleo surface, the old land surface. So what we have here is the old land surface that's preserved with the silica terraces intact, just like you'd find in Yellowstone or in Wairaki in New Zealand. And our expectation is that 150, 200 meters, maybe 300 meters below where these areas of silica terrace have formed, we're going to find gold and silver veins, like we found at Fruta del Norte.
Right. And I think you found also all the pathfinder metals, right? Like
Correct.
antimony and stuff like that, right?
Well, that's actually what led us into the discovery at Fruta del Norte. We didn't find gold. There's virtually no gold on the surface there. But there's arsenic, there's antimony, there's mercury, there's thallium, there's selenium, a bunch of kind of weird elements that people really don't know too much about. But they're what are considered to be pathfinders for gold. The gold will be at depth, but these are elements that will transfer out of the fluid at depth into gases and vapors and steam. So they end up coming right to the surface and coming out of the ground in these steam vents, which we geologists call them fumaroles. And so they can be very high in arsenic and antimony and mercury. Mercury, as you know, when you take mercury and you heat it up, it vaporizes. And so this is what happens. It's turned into mercury vapor and then condensed on the surface. So we get high levels of these sorts of things. And at Fruta del Norte, the way that was discovered was through geochemistry, a lot of geodetective work, really. So we found the arsenic and the antimony and the mercury on the surface, but virtually no gold. And when we drilled underneath that, that's where we hit the goodie zone, actually in the second hole. And then, that'll be producing gold bricks September next year, almost this time next year. So, that was a wondrous discovery, but not too far away. And as I said, in the same belt of rocks, and our expectations are very high. Instead of just having one of these systems, though, we found a half dozen.
Oops, that's quite a bit more, I would say.
Yes.
So you have now $5 million to drill. What are you going to do?
Well, this is not going to really take us to drilling. This is going to take us to pre-drilling stage, because as we're doing all this, we're also exploring our vast area of property, 208,000 hectares. It's a very, very large land position.
Of course.
And we're getting to it here and here and here and here. It's, as you know, a very, very important part of our business is engagement with the local communities. So before we send the geologist in, we send our corporate social responsibility people in. We have a team of 8 people, and they go in and they meet with the locals, and they tell them what we're doing. And in some cases, they say, okay, tomorrow you can come in. In other cases, they say, we're going to think about it for a little while. We'll have a community meeting or something like that. There's nobody who has said to us,
go away.
Go away. You're not coming in. Some of them, they're a little bit hesitant, but when they see the people in the next door community getting jobs from us and getting paid, and they see what we're doing, that it's non-destructive to the environment, then they think, oh, well, there's no harm in it at all, and they let us go ahead and start working.
Yes, and I could imagine that you have quite a good name in the land, because, I mean, you had the success before, and I think you did it also for the wealth of the people, right?
Well, this is it. And community engagement in this day and age, especially in a place like Ecuador, is extremely important. There are other, I would say, bad actors in Ecuador who have not followed the system properly. And maybe they followed the letter of the law, but that's not good enough. You have to engage with the local people on almost a daily basis.
You have to take them with you, right?
Take them with you and make them part of what you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
So that they feel involved. And, they're major stakeholders. This is land that traditionally they've lived on for centuries. And suddenly somebody comes in, and the NGOs will come in and they say, oh, the company's there to push you off your land, and they're going to pollute the place and destroy it and all the rest of it.
But that's bullshit. That never happens.
They always say that, right? And when the local people are actually working alongside of you, they see that you don't have the horns growing out of your head like the devil, right?
That's right.
So, and this is the important
Yeah,
thing.
that's really important.
So it doesn't work just to follow the letter of the law and have a community meeting once a year. We talk to the people, we work with them on a daily basis. And we have a fairly large number of Indigenous people working for us right now within the company. We have a training program, so we're training these people as geological technicians. So they have skills, transferable skills. Should they choose not to work for us in the future, they can go and work for somebody else.
Yeah, that's super.
And
So you educate them.
That's right.
Education is always key to success.
Yeah. Well, even more than that, you may be aware that I set up a private foundation. I funded it. I put $1 million into it fairly recently. It's called the Step Forward Foundation, and it's designed specifically to promote literacy and numeracy amongst the youth of the Shuar community. And the Shuar are the Indigenous people who work in our area. And they need to step up. And their problem is most of them leave school at the age of 11, and really their schooling up until age 11 is not very very strong. Yeah. And very, very few of them ever get to high school, never mind university. Very few. So what happens is that they go to the big city. You know, they've all got iPhones, and in all these communities, they have Wi-Fi for maybe an hour each day, and they talk to their friends, and they get online, and they see what's going on, and they see what's going on in the rest of the world, and they want the same sort of life and the same sort of goods that everyone else has. They don't want to live like their ancestor did, hunter-gatherer existence, right? And you know, really not living past the age of 40. So they want what everyone else wants. They want to be able to travel, want experiences, and all the rest of it. So typically, a lot of the young people will move out of the communities and they go to the cities. But as soon as they get to the cities, they realize, or they're made to realize very quickly, that they don't have the literacy skills to get any jobs. And then they run into trouble. Yeah. So we're trying to, through the foundation, give them a basis so that they can do things. And also, you know, this will lead to things like being able to train to run a piece of heavy equipment, a heavy equipment operator, like an excavator or a backhoe, become a welder, become a plumber, become a boilermaker, you know, all kinds of skills like that, which are certainly not open to somebody who's functionally illiterate, right? So it's the first rung on the ladder. And we're doing this together with the community leaders. Okay, it's not exploration, not mining exploration in the old sense, but this is a very, very important part of what we do to give a social license to operate, because our feeling and our objective is to find commercially viable ore deposits, right? Absolutely, and we think that they're there. We wouldn't be doing this, and I certainly wouldn't be funding this foundation if I didn't
believe in it,
convince myself mentally that it's there, right?
Absolutely.
So we're looking down the road, the future, 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years, right? For building successful mines and having them operate in the area,
and bringing jobs and taxes and money to the people and to the country finally.
Not to be there for 1 or 2 years and then gone, right? No, we're there for the long term. You know, I don't know what's going to happen with the company. Maybe if we're very, very successful, we get bought out and somebody else comes in, like what happened with Fruta del Norte. But whatever the situation, if you know. Certainly, the shareholders do a lot better if we kind of, it's like a value-added thing, right?
And you're laying a solid foundation for everything.
Exactly. So it's very important, right. And any you know, major company would certainly look at that, and
they have to.
Yeah, it's a very important part of the business.
So until year end, what can we expect, like news flow wise? What are the workings you are doing there?
Well, Crunchy Hill which you've heard about before. We're doing a program of hand trenching. We wanted to bring in some heavy equipment. It's only 200 meters off the road, but the environmental department said at this stage we'd have to go for a larger permit. It's faster and easier just to do it with hand labor, and there are a lot of people available to help.
Super.
So we'll just do that, and that I think is going to start as early as next week. We want to do an IP and induced polarization survey, geophysical survey over that area, but also in the other main target area, Yowie, where we've been finding all these high-level epithermals. We're starting to do a soil sampling campaign there on a grid basis. Also at near Crunchy Hill and on the other littoral targets, we've been doing what's called ridge and spur sampling, because up on the ridges, the soil is a lot thinner than it is down in the valleys.
Of course, yeah.
So the response from the geochemistry, if there's something underneath, is going to be so much stronger.
And maybe also deeper, right? You can go deeper in, right?
We can dig maybe right down to the mineralization and see what's going on. So it's paying good dividends in the geological sense, because we're finding a lot of evidence of things under the ground. So all in all, what we're trying to do here is bring these targets up to the point when we can drill them successfully, and we want to maximize our result, maximize our chances of having success.
Of course, and also not wasting money and time, of course.
No, but at the same time, we're also progressing with our regional exploration, the stream sediment work, which is the way that we found these targets in the first place. But we're working all over the whole area, and not just in the gold areas, but looking for porphyry copper as well. It's a very, very big component of what we're doing.
Because copper is the big thing, as we discussed in the car.
Absolutely, yes. I'm a huge believer in copper and in gold. But as I said, copper is going to go into deficit situation pretty soon. And you can't build all these electrical cars without having to have a network of charging stations, not just here in Europe, but worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Super. One last thing, I think, which happened last night, let's say state-wise. I think the state did some very favorable decisions for the future for the mining. Maybe you can elaborate a bit on that?
This is actually big news for Ecuador. So there have been a couple of things that the last government, the previous president put in place, which were not really well thought out. And the first one was the windfall profits tax. And so what they did, they said above a base foundation of, say, $2,000 per ounce of gold, if the gold price goes above that, the state will get 75%. 75%, right? That's crazy. And so, it's taking all the upside away.
Of course, yeah.
And people aren't being rewarded for the risk capital that they put in. And, the government said, well, we do the same thing with the oil business. But the oil business is very different business from mining because, okay, you drill, you find the oil, you put a pump jack in, and then you're producing, right? It's a matter of weeks maybe. In mining, it might take you 6, 7, 8 years to actually do the studies, the engineering and everything, and get underground and start producing the gold or whatever it is, right? So it's a very, very big investment over a long time frame. And this is something that the people in the government didn't understand. But when the previous government put it in, they had to fight hard, and they put it into the Constitution, and then it was very difficult to repeal it. This president has just done that. Last night in the National Assembly ratified it, so it's done. It's gone. Windfall profits tax. And that was a major, major drag to investment. The other thing was in the wording of the Constitution, it said that mining companies would have to pay a minimum of 5% royalty to the state.
There was like no definition, really.
No. And so people, mining executives, investors, they said, well, what does that mean? Does that mean 10%? Does it mean 20%? Does it mean 5%?
50,
what does it mean, right? And I go and I have discussions with the government, and they said, well, we don't really know. And anyway, it was another black eye for the government. So they've defined it now. It's going to be 3 to 8%. It will be on a negotiation basis. So it'll be depending on the economics of the deposit and the size of the deposit. And of course, everyone will be lobbying any company that's close to production will be wanting the 3%. But, it'll work itself out. So certainly it's not going to be 10%. And it's not going to get dopey like it did in Congo and in Mongolia, where they were asking for more than 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
Even
which kills the whole thing.
In Australia, if you remember, at one point they were asking for 20% royalty. And that brought down the government at the time. So, so it's all systems go.
But it's positive for you for the future also.
Very positive.
It makes the company and the, let's say, the properties even more attractive for a large company, maybe when you are hopefully successful. Maybe to take you out at some point of stage or whatever. Partner, joint venture, or whatever. Super.
Sure.
Perfect. Keith, that sounds like a real good game plan and really happy. Thank you very much for the update. Highly appreciate it. And I would say keep it going and we look forward to a lot of news flow then.
For sure.
Super, thank you. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, there was Dr. Keith Barrendy, Chairman and CEO of Aurania Resources. And you heard it, the company is full on track. And what we really like is that he put on a 50% premium money into the company, really substantial amount. And the company is well cashed up now because they are just finalizing a $5 million private placement. And as you heard, they are working quite hard. They are really going now into, I call it the bushes or the jungle or whatever you want to name that, and really start to dig by hand and move on with the samples and make sure that they have identified really properly their drill targets. So I would say check out the company. Thanks for watching us and bye-bye from Switzerland.